Hi everyone, my name is Wafa with matrix number 2400290. We are from tutorial 5 group 4 and today we will be presenting on the chapter 12 Understanding Leadership.
Good day everyone, my name is Nuadila binti Muhammad with matrix number 2500594. Today I will be answering discussion question 1 which focuses on defining leader and leadership as well as explaining why managers should be leaders. This topic is important because in organizations, managers are not only responsible for planning and controlling activities, but they also play an important role in leading people toward achieving organizational goals. First, I will explain the definitions of leader and leadership. A leader is someone who can influence others and has managerial authority. A leader provides direction, makes decisions, and inspires people to perform effectively in order to achieve common goals efficiently. Leaders guide their team members and help them stay focused on what needs to be accomplished. On the other hand, leadership refers to the process of leading and influencing a group to achieve its goals. Leadership involves setting a clear vision, communicating goals effectively, and supporting others in accomplishing those goals. It is not only about giving instructions, but also about motivating, guiding, and helping employees perform at their best. In simple terms, a leader is a person who holds a position, while leadership is a matter of action and influence, not merely position. Now, I will explain why managers should be leaders. There are three main reasons, which are managing change and challenges, motivating and influencing employees, and achieving organizational goals effectively. Firstly, managers should be leaders in order to manage change and challenges. Organizations constantly face changes such as the introduction of new technology, changes in customer demand, market competition, and economic uncertainty. For example, when a company introduces a new digital system, employees may feel confused or resistant because they are not familiar with the technology. A manager who acts as a leader can explain the reasons for the change, provide training, and offer support. This helps reduce employees' fear and resistance toward change. Through leadership, managers guide employees through these changes, maintain stability, solve problems, and ensure that the organizations adapt successfully to its environment. Secondly, managers should be leaders to motivate and influence employees. Leadership inspires employees to work willingly rather than merely completing tasks out of obligation. For example, a leader who recognizes employees' efforts, provides encouragement, and promotes teamwork can boost employees' morale. When employees feel appreciated, they are more motivated to perform well. As a result, motivated employees are more committed, show better performance, and are willing to put in extra effort to help the organization achieve its goals. Lastly, managers should be leaders in order to achieve organizational goals effectively. Leadership enables managers to clearly communicate organizational objectives and align employees' efforts with those goals. For example, when a manager clearly explains job roles and performance targets, employees understand what is expected of them. This reduces confusion, avoids duplication of work, and improves efficiency. With effective leadership, tasks are completed on time, resources are used efficiently, and organizational goals are achieved more successfully. In conclusion, managers should be leaders because leadership helps organizations to manage change, motivate employees, and achieve goals effectively. Without leadership, organizations may face resistance, low motivation, and poor performance. Therefore, effective leadership is essential for organizational success. Now, let's take a look at question 2, which is based on the behavioral theory of leadership, how does the behavior of one leader differ from that of other leaders? Based on the behavioral theories of leadership, leadership effectiveness depends on leaders' actions and behaviors. According to this theory, effective leadership can be learned and developed by adapting appropriate leadership behaviors to enhance organizational performance. Different leadership behaviors influence employee motivation, satisfaction, and performance, which is why behavioral theories emphasize the importance of balancing task-oriented and people-oriented behaviors. Now, I will explain how the behavior of one leader differs from that of other leaders based on task-oriented and people-oriented leadership. Task-oriented leaders focus mainly on getting the job done. They are highly concerned with work performance, efficiency, and results. This type of leadership is similar to initiating structure in the Ohio State Studies and production-oriented leadership in the Michigan Studies. Task-oriented leaders usually set clear goals, targets, and deadlines so employees know exactly what is expected of them. They assign specific tasks and roles to each team member and create rules, procedures, and work schedules to guide performance. In addition, they closely monitor progress and correct mistakes quickly to ensure that work stays on track. In contrast, people-oriented leaders focus more on people and relationships. This leadership style reflects consideration in the Ohio State Studies and employee-oriented leadership in the Michigan Studies. People-oriented leaders are concerned about employees' feelings, motivation, and teamwork. They listen to employees' ideas and concerns, encourage teamwork and open communication, and involve team members in decision making. By doing this, they create a supportive and positive working environment where employees feel valued and motivated. Overall, behavioral leadership theory suggests that effective leadership often occurs when a leader is able to balance both task-oriented and people-oriented behavior. By combining a strong focus on task achievement with genuine concern for people, leaders can improve employee performance while maintaining positive working relationships. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nur Shazatu Adam Mutishara Azmi with student ID 25006066. I will move on to the next question, which is question 12.3. Leaders are born, not made. Do you agree with this statement? Why or why not? My answer to the question is I do not fully agree with this statement. Leaders are born and not made. This is because of the trait theory of leadership. Trait theory suggests that leaders are born with certain natural characteristics which can make them more different than the non-leaders. According to the theory, traits such as intelligence, integrity, or self-confidence often found in leaders. Early researchers believe that if a person has these traits, they were more likely to become a leader. This theory also focuses on who leaders are rather than how they behave or how they learn to lead. It assumes that leadership's qualities are relatively stable and already present in a person. In this slide, I will talk about why leaders can be made. Having a leadership trait alone does not guarantee leadership success. Many individuals may have traits such as intelligence or confidence, but still fail to lead effectively. This shows that traits are helpful, but they are not enough on their own. Leadership also involves skills and behaviors such as communication, motivating others, making decisions, and handling problems. These skills can be learned and developed through education, training, and real-life experience. Leadership effectiveness depends on situation and people, which means leadership's ability can improve over time. Therefore, while some people may be born with leadership traits, leadership itself can be developed, showing that leaders can be made, not just born. The next question is, a leader's effectiveness depends on their followers' ability. Which theory claims this and why? For this question, the statement, a leader's effectiveness depends on their followers' ability, is explained by the situational leadership theory, which is SLT. SLT was developed by Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard. It is a contingency theory, which means leadership's effectiveness depends on the situation, rather than one fixed leadership style. SLT focuses on followers, rather than on the leader. The theory emphasizes followers' readiness, which refers to their ability and willingness to perform a specific task. This theory connects directly to the statement because it shows that leadership effectiveness is not only about what the leader does, but also about how prepared and capable the followers are. In this slide, I will explain why situational leadership theory supports the statement that a leader's effectiveness depends on followers' ability. Leadership effectiveness reflects the reality that it is the followers who accept or reject the leader. Regardless of the leader's actions, the group's effectiveness depends on the actions of the followers. Followers' readiness includes their ability, meaning their skills and competence, and their willingness, meaning motivation and confidence. When followers have low ability, leaders need to provide more guidance and direction. When followers have high ability, leaders can delegate the task and give them more independence. Therefore, leaders must adjust their leadership style based on followers' ability level. This explains why, according to SLT, a leader's effectiveness strongly depends on the ability of their followers.
Hello everyone, my name is Sakaran Arasatya, and today I will be discussing the intricate relationship between leadership, trust, and management approaches. To kick things off, I want to draw your attention to the question on the screen. Do you think that most managers in real life use a contingency approach to increase their leadership effectiveness? In textbooks, the answer is obviously yes. We are taught that managers should adapt, but in the real world, human nature often leads managers to stick to their comfort zones, either being too strict or too lenient, regardless of the situation. However, the most effective leaders are those who can step out of that comfort zone. But here's the catch. You cannot successfully adapt your style or use a contingency approach if your team does not trust you. If they don't trust you, your change in behavior just looks like instability. This brings us to our core concept, trust as the foundation of leadership. As you can see on this slide, trust is the bond that actually allows leaders to guide and influence others. It is important to make a distinction here. Management is about authority and position. Leadership is about influence. You do not need to be a manager to lead, but you effectively cannot be a good manager without being a leader. And you cannot lead without trust. Trust isn't just given, it is built through your personal characteristics and how you respond to specific situations. Research consistently shows that trustworthy leaders are significantly more effective at getting results because their followers want to. This brings us to our core concept, trust as the foundation of leadership. As you can see on this slide, trust is the bond that actually allows leaders to guide and influence others. It is important to make a distinction here. Management is about authority and position. Leadership is about influence. You do not need to be a manager to lead, but you effectively cannot be a good manager without being a leader. And you cannot lead without trust. Trust isn't just given, it is built through your personal characteristics and how you respond to specific situations. Research consistently shows that trustworthy leaders are significantly more effective at getting results because their followers want to work for them, rather than just having to work for them. So, what exactly makes a leader trustworthy? It's not just a feeling, it can be broken down into 5 key dimensions, as shown here. Integrity, this is number 1. It refers to your honesty and truthfulness. If a team adopts a leader character, everything else falls apart. Competence, this involves your technical and interpersonal skills. People need to trust that you actually know what you are doing. You can be a nice person, but if you are incompetent, you lose trust. Consistency, this relates to reliability and predictability. Leaders who are erratic, happy one day and angry the next create anxiety. A consistent leader allows the team to feel safe. Loyalty, the next point is loyalty. This is the willingness to protect another person. A leader earns trust when the team knows the leader has their back, even when things go wrong. Openness, finally, sharing ideas freely. A leader who hides information creates a culture of suspicion. To be truly effective, a leader needs to score high in all 5 of these areas. Now let's look at how this applies to the contingency approach in practice. The contingency approach states that there is no single best way to lead. Effectiveness depends on the situation. Sometimes you need a task-oriented style, focusing on deadlines and efficiency, and sometimes you need a people-oriented style, focusing on morale and relationships. Neither is right for every situation. However, this is the bridge that allows you to switch between these styles. In high-stress environments, if the team trusts you, they will accept a strict task-oriented command because they know you are competent and loyal. Without trust, that same command feels like tyranny. We can see the cause of lost trust in the FIFA case mentioned on the slide. When an organization lacks transparency and integrity, it leads to scandals. FIFA had to undergo massive reforms not just to change their rules, but to rebuild their reputation. Once trust is broken, the cost to fix it is incredibly high. In summary, to succeed, leaders must demonstrate those 5 dimensions of trust to maintain accountability and organizational health. To conclude, strategies and contingency plans are important, but they are useless without the human element of trust. As manager or future managers, our first job is to build that foundation. This concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Hi everyone, today I will talk about the leadership crisis at FIFA. Football is a massive business, but FIFA lost the world's trust due to a corruption scandal involving the World Cup bids for Russia and Qatar. Although FIFA hired an investigator, Michael Garcia, to look into the issue, they refused to publish his full findings, effectively covering up the truth. This failure of transparency led to a disaster. US authorities raided FIFA, arresting officials for over $150 million in bribes dating back decades. Ultimately, President Sepp Blatter was forced to resign and was banned from the sport. Today, new leadership is trying to rebuild that reputation. The key lesson here is clear. Without integrity and transparency, leadership collapses.
Hi, my name is Nur Isa Afika binti Shafri, metric numbers 2400475. Now, we will discuss on question 1211 from case study 1, success theater at General Electric on topic football focus. So, the question asks, what does the number of senior FIFA executives being investigated say about the culture at FIFA? The large number of senior FIFA executives being investigated strongly suggests that corruption at FIFA was systematic rather than individual, reflecting a deeply flawed organizational culture. First, it indicates a culture of normalized unethical behavior. When many senior leaders are implicated over a period of more than 2 decades, corruption is no longer an exception. It becomes routine. Bribery, vote trading, and misuse of funds appear to have been accepted as how things are done within FIFA. Such normalization typically arises when unethical practices go unchallenged and are silently endorsed by those at the top. Second, it points to a lack of ethical leadership and role modeling. Senior executives set the tone for organizational behavior. The involvement of high-ranking officials, including the presidents, suggests that leaders fail to act as moral role models. Instead of enforcing ethical standards, they either participated in or ignored misconduct, signaling to others that ethical breaches carry little risk. Third, it reveals weak governance, oversight, and accountability mechanism. The fact that corruption continued for 24 years and involved more than $150 million in bribes shows that internal controls were ineffective. Ethics committee lacked independence, investigation was suppressed as seen in the handling of the Garcia report, and whistleblowing was discouraged or unsafe. This allowed unethical behavior to flourish without consequence. Fourth, the widespread investigation imply a culture of secrecy and protectionism. Executives appear more focused on protecting FIFA's image and internal networks than on integrity. The refusal to publish a full investigation finding suggests an organization that prioritizes self-preservation over transparency, further embedding mistrust. Finally, it reflects a power-concentrated culture where senior executives had excessive influence over decisions such as World Cup hosting rights. With limited checks and balances, power was easily abused, enabling collusions and corruptions at the highest levels. In summary, the number of senior FIFA executives under investigations reveals a culture characterized by normalized corruption with ethical leadership, poor accountability, secrecy, and excessive concentration of power. This toxic culture explains why FIFA's trust collapsed so dramatically and why deep structural reform rather than individual punishment was necessary to rebuild credibility.
Hello everyone, my name is Raizal Zahir Adiba with metrics number 24211911, and now I will be discussing about discussion question 1212 in case study 1, success theater at General Electric with topic football focus. So the question is, of the 8 suggestions for building trust, which do you think should have been the focus for FIFA? Think about Michael J. Garcia's report. So to answer this, in my opinion, of the 8 suggestions for building trust, the one that should have been the main focus for FIFA is integrity and transparency. This is especially clear when we consider on Michael J. Garcia's report. FIFA's biggest trust failure was not only on corruption, but how it handled the investigation into corruption. Well, Garcia produced a 350-page independent report on the 2018 and 2022 World Cup bidding processes, and FIFA chose not to publish the full report, releasing only a short summary instead. This decision created the impression that FIFA was hiding damaging information, even if reforms were being discussed. And when Garcia resigned, stating that the summary misrepresented the facts, shows that investigation was not trustworthy, which further destroyed FIFA's credibility. The lack of transparency reinforced public suspicion and accelerated the collapse of trust. At that moment, FIFA had a critical opportunity to rebuild trust but missed it. So, for the solution is to focus on transparency to rebuild trust. If FIFA had prioritized openness and integrity, they could have published the full Garcia report or a properly redacted version and allowed the independent scrutiny of the findings to proving that the investigation was not biased, shown stakeholders that it had nothing to hide, even if the results were uncomfortable, showing that they were serious about fixing problems even if it hurt their image. Also demonstrated that ethical standards apply, which means being powerful or important does not give someone a special treatment. And why other trust-building suggestions were less effective without transparency? Important to keep in mind that other suggestions such as competence, concern for stakeholders, or consistency could not work without honesty. Stakeholders cannot trust decisions if information is controlled. Ethical reforms lack credibility if past actions are not openly addressed, and leadership promises mean little when evidence is withheld. And for the conclusion, FIFA should have prioritized integrity and transparency in rebuilding trust. Its lack of disclosure and support for the Garcia report undermined reform efforts, while true trust recovery would have required openness, even at the expense of a short-term reputation.
Hi, my name is Wafa binti Muhammad Amin with matrix number 2400290, and I'll be presenting about the question, what does the case say about Blatter's style of leadership? The case portrays Sepp Blatter's leadership style as largely autocratic, unethical, and lacking accountability, which significantly contributed to the leadership crisis within FIFA. Firstly, Blatter's leadership reflects an autocratic style, where decision-making power was highly centralized at the top level of the management. For example, major decisions, particularly those related to the World Cup bidding process, were made by a small group of senior executives with minimal transparency. This concentration of power reduced opportunities for open discussion, ultimately allowing unethical practices to run within the organization. Secondly, the case showed no evidence of ethical leadership practiced by Blatter. Ethical leaders are expected to demonstrate integrity, fairness, and responsibility, especially when facing allegations of misconduct. However, Blatter repeatedly denied wrongdoing and failed to take corrective action despite growing number of evidence of corruption. He also refused to fully disclose the Garcia report, further suggests an attempt to protect personal and organizational image rather than uphold the ethical standards. In addition, Blatter's leadership style weakened trust, which is a fundamental component of effective leadership. Stakeholders such as member associations, players, sponsors, and the public lost confidence in FIFA's governance due to ongoing scandals and lack of transparency. This will put the next president in difficulty to recover from tarnished reputation of FIFA and gain trust from public. Overall, the case suggests that Blatter's leadership was focused more on maintaining control and authority rather than fostering transparency, accountability, and ethical conduct. This leadership approach ultimately damaged FIFA's reputation and highlighted the need for a more ethical, transparent, and trust-based leadership style.
Moving on to the next question, which is in 2011, when asked about the crisis at FIFA around the rumors of financial irregularities, Blatter downplayed the allegation dismissively. Which of the 5 dimensions of trust do you think Blatter was failing to demonstrate here? So between the 5 dimensions of trust, I think that one Blatter failed to demonstrate is firstly integrity. Blatter failed to demonstrate integrity because he downplayed the corruption allegation instead of addressing them honestly and seriously. A leader with great integrity should take responsibility and act ethically. However, his response showed weak moral judgment, which caused people to lose their trust in his leadership in FIFA. Secondly is openness. Blatter also lack of openness because he did not communicate transparently about the crisis towards the media. When he was the president of FIFA, he avoided clearly explaining the situation and limited the information to share with the public and also the football fans. This lack of transparency increased suspicion among stakeholders and also already damaged FIFA credibility. Third is consistency. When Blatter was a FIFA president in 2011, his statements were very inconsistent with the evidence that emerged later, which revealed widespread corruption within FIFA. Consistency in leadership means that a leader's word should be aligned with action and also the reality. His failure to do so made the stakeholder question about his reliability as a leader in FIFA organization. And lastly is competence. Blatter showed a lack of competence in managing the crisis effectively, not only in 2011, but also in other years when he was the president of FIFA. A competent leader should be able to control situation, make proper decisions, and restore trust. Instead, Blatter's poor handling of the crisis allowed the problem to be more worse and further harm FIFA reputation. In conclusion, Sepp Blatter's leadership during the FIFA corruption crisis was a big failure. Instead of facing the issue honestly and openly, he chose to downplay the seriousness of the situation. As the truth slowly emerged, his word is no longer matched the reality, causing public trust in his leadership to collapse. He also failed to manage the crisis properly, which badly damaged FIFA reputation. This case showed that good leadership needs integrity, openness, competence, and also consistency, especially during a big crisis.
Hi, my name is Muskira binti Abdul Aziz with matrix number 25003868. Today, I'll be discussing the leadership styles that would be most effective for Gianni Infantino as he works to restore FIFA's reputation after years of corruption scandals. The three styles I focus on are transformational leadership, servant leadership, and ethical leadership. First, transformational leadership. This style is about inspiring change and creating a strong vision for the future. Infantino needs to act as a visionary change by clearly communicating a future where FIFA is transparent, ethical, and trusted worldwide. He should explain why reforms are necessary and how they benefit all stakeholders, such as players, fans, sponsors, and member associations. Next, he must motivate and empower others. By encouraging innovation and rewarding integrity, Infantino can shift FIFA's culture from secrecy to openness. This will make people work towards a shared goal, not just follow rules out of fear. Finally, transformational leadership means driving cultural transformation. FIFA's reputation is badly damaged, so Infantino must lead a complete cultural overhaul, such as changing values and behavior, not just policies. He should model honesty and accountability, making these qualities central to FIFA's identity. The second style is ethical leadership, which is essential for restoring credibility. Infantino must lead by example, demonstrating honesty, fairness, and transparency in all dealings, especially in areas like World Cup bidding and financial management. He should also establish strong governance by implementing strict compliance system, independent audits, and clear accountability measures. Ethical leadership is about preventing corruption, not just punishing it after the fact. Finally, Infantino needs to promote a zero-tolerance culture. Unethical behavior should not be tolerated at any level and rules must be enforced consistently. This reinforces that ethics are non-negotiable. The third style is servant leadership, which focuses on putting others first. Infantino should demonstrate that FIFA exists to serve football, not to enrich executive. This means listening to players, fans, and member association and making decisions that benefit the sport globally. Servant leadership also builds trust through empathy by showing genuine concern for stakeholders and addressing their concerns openly. Infantino can rebuild confidence, for example, involving member nations in decision making and ensuring fair representation in governance. Lastly, this style creates a collaborative environment. Infantino should encourage cooperation between FIFA and regional federations so that reforms are co-created rather than imposed. This approach reduces resistance and strengthens unity. In summary, these three leadership styles, which is transformational leadership, servant leadership, and ethical leaderships, are critical for Infantino to succeed. Together, they will help rebuild trust, inspire change, and ensure FIFA operates with integrity. Thank you. So, I'll pass to the next presenter.
Hi, my name is Nur Izafika binti Shafri, match number 2400475. Now, I will be presenting the 10 point of summarization from case study 2, developing Gen Y leaders on topic serving up leaders. Firstly, is high expectation. Ferguson set extremely high standards both on and off the pitch. Second, disciplinary approach. Use the hairdryer treatment selectively to enforce discipline. Third, immediate issue resolution. Address problems promptly and move up to maintain team harmony. Fourth, adaptive leadership. Varied his management style depending on individual players' personalities and needs. Fifth, cultural transformation. Tackle negative behavior such as the club's drinking culture and instill a strong work ethic. Sixth, fostering commitment. Encourage players to dress formally, promoting pride and a sense of belonging. Next, attention to detail. Learn the name of all team members and support staff, showing respect and building relationship. 8. Relationship management. Balance fear and respect, motivating players while maintaining loyalty. Next is visionary planning. Implemented long-term strategies to build the club cultures and performance sustainably. Lastly is knowledge sharing. Continued leadership influence after retirement through teaching and publishing insights in leading. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nishan Tinagaran, matrix number 25005563. Today I'll be discussing questions based on case application 2, which is serving up leaders. So, moving on to the question, what leadership theories do you feel Ferguson action supports? So, the first one will be situational leadership theory. Ferguson varied his leadership style depending on the player by shouting at some and supporting others. This aligns with situational leadership where leaders adapt their behavior based on others' needs, maturity and circumstances. His behavior towards players and staffs is important because it's more easier to engage and communicate with them. Next, transformational leadership. He changed the culture of Manchester United by setting high standards, instilling discipline and creating a shared vision. His long-term focus on commitment, work ethic and belonging inspired players beyond short-term performance. And the third one will be behavioral leadership. Ferguson displayed strong personal traits such as determination, confidence, discipline and authority. He balanced task-oriented behavior by enforcing discipline and high-performance standard while also showing people-oriented behavior by building relationship with players and support staff. This inherent characteristic contributed to his effectiveness as a leader. It is very important so that there is no lack of motivation in players to succeed in their matches. Next, what leadership traits do you see being demonstrated in this case? For the first one will be visionary thinking. In this case, Ferguson had a clear long-term vision for the club's culture and success, not just for only winning trophies and matches, but to protect the club's name for a long period of time. The next one will be confidence and authority. He was not afraid to confront the players, enforce discipline or terminate contracts when standards were violated. This shows that he does anything to save the club's good name. The third one will be integrity. He upheld strict standards of behavior both on and off the pitch. This shows that he is being fair towards the players on both sides. The fourth one is adaptability. His ability to change leadership styles based on situation and individuals shows his flexibility. Learning the names of support staff showed respect and awareness beyond just the players. And the last one is emotional intelligence. He understood the individual players' personalities and knew when to be rough or supportive. This is very important to maintain the relationship between the manager and players to succeed in the future.
Next question is, to what degree has emotional intelligence played a part in Alex Ferguson's success? Emotional intelligence played a critical and substantial role in Alex Ferguson's long-term success as a leader at Manchester United. Although Ferguson was widely known for his strict discipline and aggressive behavior, the case reveals that his leadership was not based on emotional outbursts alone, but on a deep understanding of people and situations. Firstly, Ferguson's attention to relationships extended beyond players to include support staff. By learning the names of the staff members and engaging with them personally, he created a culture of respect and inclusion. This behavior strengthened organizational commitment and reinforced a shared sense of purpose within the club. Secondly, Ferguson showed strong self-awareness and self-regulation. While he was capable of being harsh when necessary, his actions were often deliberate rather than impulsive. He understood when to confront players publicly and when to address issues privately, ensuring that discipline did not permanently damage relationships. This ability to manage his own emotions allowed him to maintain authority while avoiding long-term conflict with the club members. Furthermore, Ferguson displayed high levels of empathy and social awareness. He recognized that each player had different motivations, personalities, and emotional needs. As a result, he varied his leadership approach depending on the individual, which helped maximize performance and commitment. This individualized treatment contributed to strong player loyalty and a positive working relationships despite high performance expectations. In conclusion, emotional intelligence was a fundamental factor in Alex Ferguson's leadership success. His ability to understand, manage, and respond effectively to emotions enabled him to build trust, maintain discipline, and sustain high performance over an extended period. Next, I will pass to my friend.
Hi, my name is Mukris Hakimi and my metric number is 24229068. So I'll be covering discussion question 12.19. So it is what you see as the possible problem of varying the leadership approach with different players. So let's dive into the first critical management point, which is the perception of favoritism in management. Procedural justice is essential. It's the idea that the process for rewards and discipline is fair for everyone. When a manager like Ferguson varies his approach, he risks creating double standards. If a high-performing star is treated with leniency, while a junior player gets the hairdryer treatment for the same error, it creates a teacher's pet dynamic. For a manager, this is dangerous because it destroys team morale. Employees stop working for the organization's goal and start focusing on who is liked more, leading to a toxic internal competition rather than teamwork. The employees or players who feel unfairly treated will often consciously or subconsciously reduce their effort of productivity. So the second issue is that the manager becomes seen as unpredictable. Effective management usually relies on consistency so that subordinates know what to expect without you creating a minefield environment. If employees are constantly trying to guess which version of the manager they will face today, they will lose their psychological safety. So this specifically discourages risk-taking. In a management context, you want your team to be proactive and solve problems. However, if they fear an unpredictable negative reaction, they will default to a safety and mediocre performance to avoid conflict. They are no longer focused on excellence, however, they are just focused on avoiding the manager's temper. So thirdly, we have erosion of respect. There's a thin line between being an adaptable leader and being inconsistent. If manager changes their personality too drastically or just too fast, depending on who they are talking to, they may portray as being manipulative or having a lacking core identity. Management authority is built on respect. If the team feels like the manager is acting like in a certain way just to handle them, they lose faith in their leader's authenticity. This leads to subordinates undermining the manager's authority. So, for example, in the case of Ferguson, we saw he had to be extremely firm when terminating a captain's contract just to maintain control. So you could clearly see the effect being played of his varying leadership. However, he was able to handle the problem. Unlike, for example, a lesser manager, this inconsistency would be the end of them. It would result in the team looking down on them and ignoring their directives. So finally, the last point and the most tricky for most managers is complex memorization. So Ferguson succeeded because he knew every detail, from the names of the laundry staff to the specific psychological triggers of his stars. However, for most managers, trying to maintain 25 different leadership styles is just mentally exhausting and highly prone to error. The margin of error is so razor thin that if a manager miscalculates and applies the wrong pressure, the wrong tactics to the wrong person, it can have a permanent effect on that professional relationship. One wrong outburst can lead to a star employee quitting or having a total breakdown in productivity that takes months to repair. It is a high-risk, high-reward strategy that requires near-perfect emotional intelligence. So that is all from me.